Welcome to Literacy Module Number 2. This module's focal point describes effective practice in Tier 2. As with Module 1, the PowerPoint was designed to accompany the case study and handouts for this section. This provides an opportunity for the participants to interact with the material and to discuss and develop or enhance the tiers of support. You are not limited to the strategies and supports described here. Please feel free to apply components you are using or are familiar with in your school or district. This module is divided into 5 sections. The first section, slides 3 through 12, describe the components necessary to ensure effective Tier 2 or supplemental support. The recording time in this section is approximately 18 minutes long. The second section, slides 13 through 18, provides guidance on effective progress monitoring with questions to guide decision-making in Tier 2. The recording time in this section is approximately 5 minutes. The third section, slides 19 through 26, provide grouping recommendations with an example of how to develop small groups designed around data results. The recording time in this section is approximately 5 minutes long. Section 4, slides 27 through 31, provides an opportunity for participants to apply the recommendations discovered in this module to a case study. The recording time in this section is approximately 4 minutes, but will require additional time to review and work through the documents. Section 5, slides 32 through 36, are videos that provide examples of effective Tier 2 practice in action. Each video requires additional viewing time. Grouping is approximately 20 minutes long, elementary 16 minutes, secondary 14 minutes. Total viewing time in this section is approximately 51 minutes. Throughout this module, please feel free at any time to pause this presentation to review and discuss the information. Thank you. Let's begin with effective Tier 2 instruction. When we consider Tier 2, the focus of instruction should be to take a look at the gaps in reading that pose a barrier to learning. This recommendation is to provide up to 3 foundational reading skills to students who score below benchmark on universal screening data. To ensure we are meeting students' needs when making critical decisions regarding curricula and instructional decisions for students, we would include more than one data source. So we would look at benchmark, progress monitoring, and group diagnostic data to identify groups of students who share the same need that would benefit from the evidence-based intervention identified to accelerate the development of those skills. In order to target those gaps, the instruction should be systematic, explicit, and interactive. When we think of systematic, we think about building skills gradually, first in isolation, and then by integrating them with other skills. This would include breaking activities into small, segmented steps that would progress from simple to complex tasks, to build upon background knowledge and prior skills and understanding in order for students to connect one activity to another. And when we think about explicit, we think about overtly teaching every step to model and provide guided practice. The pace is determined by students' progress, and the instruction must be scaffolded. On the teacher's part, the thinking process must be public so the students clearly understand why each step is necessary, how it fits together, and where they are going. The who, what, where, why, and how of learning. When we think about interactive, we know that this involves a high level of teacher-student interaction that includes frequent opportunities for practice and feedback. So the skills would be built gradually, making the thinking process public and leaves nothing to chance. Also included would be the necessity to reduce error rate in student responses, to integrate learning across settings, and provide authentic, opportunities to practice skills with increased difficulty. This focused, targeted instruction is a supplemental support aligned with standards. Another recommendation is to carefully monitor the progress of students at least once a month. So keep in mind that we shared many resources for progress monitoring tools in Module 1, and we'll be taking a look at progress monitoring a little later on in this module as well. But it's important to know that progress monitoring is predetermined, it's aligned to specific skills, and also aligned with grade level expectations. So in Tier 2, the recommendation for small group instruction is that students are placed in homogeneous groups for 20 to 40 minutes for 3 to 5 days a week. So ongoing progress monitoring plays an important role as teachers focus in on small group instruction. So as students meet with success, the focus would change and the teacher would regroup students accordingly. While we often think of reading as one singular act, we know that reading is a complex cognitive process. Our brains are actually engaging in a number of tasks simultaneously every time we sit down to read. We know that there are 5 components to the process of reading: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. These work together to create the reading experience. As students learn to read, they must develop skills in all 5 of these areas in order to become successful readers. Phonemic awareness is the understanding that words are created from phonemes. Phonemes are the smallest units making up spoken language. They are combined together to form syllables and words. Phonemic awareness refers to the ability to focus on and manipulate these phonemes in spoken words. Teaching students to manipulate the sounds and language helps them learn to read. This is true across learners, age levels, and grade levels. By focusing on teaching phonemic awareness to students significantly improves their reading when compared to instruction without any attention to phonemic awareness at all. Phonics is the connection between sounds and letter symbols. It is also the combination of these sound-symbol connections to create words. Phonics instruction is a way of teaching reading that stresses learning how letters correspond to sounds and how to use this knowledge in reading and in spelling. Teaching phonics systematically leads to significant positive benefits for all students in kindergarten through 6th grade and in higher grade levels for students who struggle with reading. Fluency is the reader's ability to read with speed, accuracy, and expression. It requires the reader to combine and use multiple reading skills at the same time. It's the ability to move through text at a fluid pace while evoking the meaning and demonstrating the feeling as a fluent reader. Fluency is one of several critical factors necessary for reading comprehension, but is often neglected in the classroom. If students read out loud with speed, accuracy, and proper expression, they are more likely to comprehend and remember the material than if they read with difficulty and in an inefficient way. Vocabulary development and vocabulary instruction are considered important components for reading comprehension and should be taught both directly and indirectly. As students become more advanced in their reading, they learn to connect oral or spoken vocabulary to their reading vocabulary or print to enrich or strengthen their word development. This is an ongoing process that continues throughout life. Reading comprehension is the most complex cognitive process of reading. It not only involves all of the other 4 components of reading, it also requires the reader to draw upon general thinking skills. Reading comprehension skills develop and improve over time throughout instruction and practice. Comprehension is an active process that requires an intentional and thoughtful interaction between the reader and the text. teachers need to equip students with the development and application of reading comprehension strategies to enhance understanding. In addition to the original 5 components of reading described earlier through the information provided by the National Reading Panel, a 6th component, oral language, is included also as an essential component necessary for the development of communication and spoken interaction. It is the system where we use spoken words to express knowledge, ideas, and feelings. Oral language is made up of vocabulary and linguistic comprehension that includes phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics, as well as a system in which spoken words convey knowledge, thought, and expression. Oral language assists learners in understanding what is being read and the importance of which are supported throughout all the years of schooling. When considering instruction targeting oral language skills, educators could focus on targeted oral language instruction shared in the booklet 5 Components of Effective Oral Language Instruction, shared visually on the screen and found at the link at the bottom of the page. The first component is to develop listening and speaking or conversational skills that influence how students can interact with others. Some ideas are to ask open-ended and clarifying questions, use reflective listening techniques, include partnering opportunities, and model good listening and speaking techniques. The next is to teach a variety of spoken text in order to assist students with understanding how a variety of oral language texts operate in different situations like oral reports, partner and small group work, conversations, questioning, arguments or debates, and when providing instructions or directions. Next, create a language learning environment that is physically and emotionally supportive for a positive classroom culture and provides opportunity for increased communication for all students in the classroom environment. Provide a special reading place, opportunities to reflect and discuss, and modeling good listening techniques for students as well. Next, you could teach and extend vocabulary and conceptual knowledge through speaking, listening, reading, and writing activities, like utilizing word walls, linear arrays, and semantic mapping. And last, promote auditory memory through repetition, retelling, using visual cues, and mnemonics, just to name a few. When working with struggling readers, we must provide them with necessary support focused on their needs. The research collected here shares the combined recommendations we will touch on in the next few slides. They are motivation, decoding, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Motivating struggling readers who meet with failure and are falling behind can be very challenging. In order to win these types of students over, we must capture their attention, get buy-in, and provide them with the tools necessary in order to be successful. There are several ways to gain trust. You can teach students how to problem solve, set goals, and monitor their own progress while providing them with continuous feedback on their growth and development. This provides a thorough understanding of the importance of what they're learning, how they're learning it, and how to apply what they've learned. As they're progressing and applying what they're learning, provide students choice, self-directed opportunities, and allow them to have control over their learning for a sense of ownership and responsibility. This can be through homework, assessments, assignments, class activities, and products. Provide interactive and collaborative learning opportunities. Build skills gradually and provide a high level of teacher-student interaction with time for practice and feedback. Ensure collaboration with both teacher and students through roles and responsibility, collaboration, group work, and self and peer evaluation with feedback. It is also important to provide excellent learning opportunities by connecting to background knowledge, providing hands-on opportunities, and ensure relevant learning is taking place. The teacher needs to model effective reading behaviors and employ specific targeted strategy instruction that students can apply throughout their day and throughout their learning experience. Decoding is the ability to apply knowledge of letter-sound relationships, including letter patterns, to correctly recognize and understand written words. We need to ensure the instruction is systematic, explicit, and direct. Systematic is purposefully building skills gradually, first in isolation, and then by integrating them with other skills. Systematic instruction refers to a carefully planned sequence for instruction, thought out and designed before activities and lessons are developed. Lessons build on previously taught information from simple to complex, with clear and concise student objectives that are driven by ongoing assessment. Students are provided appropriate practice opportunities which directly reflect instruction. Explicit is the step-by-step direct instruction that involves high level of teacher-student interaction that includes frequent opportunities for practice and feedback, making the thinking process public, which leaves no room for guessing. In general, the term direct instruction refers to the instructional approaches that are structured, sequenced, led by teachers, and directed toward students. A teacher using direct instruction models, explains, and guides the students through extended practice of a skill or concept until mastery is achieved. The lessons are scaffolded and fast-paced. Students are academically engaged, and the teacher is actively delivering instruction. The focus of decoding instruction should be of high-frequency sound spelling relationships and words through a reflective process that provides students frequent opportunity to practice identification of words in context. Emphasize connections among word analysis or relationships between spelling and pronunciation that would include prefixes, roots, and suffixes, word recognition to recognize words correctly and effortlessly, and semantic access or word meaning. Fluency is the ability to read text with accuracy, appropriate rate, and with good expression. Significant improvements in reading accuracy are made through guided oral reading instruction. This strategy assists students with improving a variety of reading skills such as word recognition, fluency, and comprehension. It's necessary to provide repeated reading opportunities to practice fluent reading orally with feedback to ensure automaticity of sight word vocabulary. Create an atmosphere that incorporates techniques like modeled repeated reading, listening read-along, paired reading, and reader's theater. It's also necessary for students to have exposure to non-repetitive reading opportunities and a wide variety of text structures. Studies have found there is a strong correlation between a student's ability to read grade level text and the ability to comprehend that text. Vocabulary is the ability to understand and use words to acquire and convey meaning, which is crucial to the comprehension process of a skilled reader. There are 4 types of vocabulary that fall under 2 separate categories. The first category is receptive vocabulary, and it contains listening and reading. Listening vocabulary are the words we need to know to understand what we hear or are listening to. Reading vocabulary are the words we need to know to understand what we read or what is being presented to us in text. The second category is expressive vocabulary. It contains speaking and writing. Speaking vocabulary are the words we use in speaking, and writing vocabulary are the words we use when writing. When learning vocabulary, in order to reach mastery level of adaptation, requires opportunities to practice vocabulary in new situations. Therefore, educators would provide a variety of experiences for each vocabulary word to develop deep understanding. This may require up to 12 rich and varied exposures to the word. Incorporate explicit instruction, particularly for difficult words and words not typically part of a student's everyday experience. Provide direct instruction for all learners in all settings, whole group, small group, and one-on-one, and indirect instruction for exposure to a wide range of reading material. Utilize vocabulary repetitiously through arranging frequent encounters and ensuring the learning environment is word-rich for support. Provide meaningful tasks in reading and through conversation and discussion, strategy use, and word analysis, reading, conversation, strategies, and word parts. Ensure active engagement through deep processing of words and meanings and a range of contexts to improve development and reading comprehension. Include multimedia methods such as computer programs, apps, and audio recordings to go beyond text support. Use association approaches whereby using senses and images to make a connection between what students know and what they're learning. And use of relevant vocabulary words, which means careful selection of appropriate words for planned teaching and reinforcement. Comprehension is an active process that requires an intentional and thoughtful interaction between the reader and the text. It is a purposeful, active, and interactive process that occurs before, during, and after reading. Include experiences to support comprehension like providing direct, explicit instruction and use of reading comprehension strategies, activate prior knowledge, use graphic organizers, teach comprehension monitoring strategies and summarization skills. Include focused, high-quality discussion and conversation on the meaning of text. Ensure purposeful text selection to support comprehension and development. Provide engaging and motivating context to teach reading comprehension. Interpret, recognize, and relate connection of the text. Use of abstract themes and ideas to analyze meaning for higher order thinking. And extend text information to relate experiences and world events. In the next section, we'll focus on progress monitoring that describes effective practices and provides questions to guide decision-making in Tier 2. One of the most challenging tasks is discovering effective techniques to determine what and how much students are actually learning. It is necessary for educators to think carefully about what kinds of knowledge their tests allow students to demonstrate. When we think about progress monitoring, we think of it as repeated measurement of academic performance to determine whether the progress is adequate to meet the instructional goal. If not, the teacher adjusts instruction to better meet the needs and continues to monitor progress. This process recurs throughout instruction to formatively develop an effective instructional program. Decisions regarding progress monitoring, which include what you're monitoring, how, when, and why, is predetermined at regular intervals prior to implementation of support. Data collection tools are linked to the specific skills targeted for improvement and are easy and efficient to administer. Therefore, the assessments are chosen for a specific purpose in mind. The visual on the slide shares a snapshot of the academic progress monitoring tools reviewed and rated by the National Center for Intensive Intervention, or NCII, and can be found at their website at the link at the bottom of the slide. The tool contains 3 tabs: Psychometric Standards, Progress Monitoring Standards, and Data-Based Individualization Standards. You can click on the tabs at the top of the chart to see the ratings for each set of standards. Across the top of the chart are detailed descriptions of how the ratings were defined. Click on the name of the tool in the title column to access the additional information, including the cost of the tool, what is needed for implementation, how the tool is intended to be used, and with whom it should be used, and the specific data submitted for each standard. Every column of the chart can be sorted by clicking the text at the top of the column. The tools in the chart can be filtered by subject and by grade level using the filter tool at the top. In order for the practice of effective progress monitoring to take place, the educator establishes both proximal or short-term and distal or long-term goals for students that focus on specific reading skills the students are working on in order to improve grade level expectations or their Tier 1 performance. It is necessary to formulate and refine short and long-term goals frequently to ensure targets are being met and are overtly making connections to core expectations to fill gaps and target relevant information. Educators have ongoing conversations with students regarding data and provide immediate and continuous feedback through frequent data chats. Provide self-monitoring checklists, rubrics, and include opportunity for students to self-regulate effective practices, goal setting, and progress monitoring. It is also necessary to provide a visual representation of the data. It captures attention, simplifies information. It's not only visually appealing, but assists with determining the trajectory of the data results to determine if the goal will be met or if readjustments need to be made. When assessing Tier 2, progress monitoring decisions are varied for differing student needs and frequency. Depending upon what is being assessed, assessments may occur anywhere from once a month to once a week. Educators make this determination based on the needs of the small group of students he or she is working with and the assessment parameters. The snapshot at the bottom of the page is a question and answer document to assist when making critical decisions regarding MTSS implementation components and can be found at the link at the bottom of the page. When focusing on supplemental or Tier 2 support, there are several questions to consider for assessing students. You would ask questions like, which students require supplemental instruction? How should students receiving supplemental instruction be grouped together for small group instruction? Which students will be provided with a standard protocol approach? And which students will need modified interventions or more in-depth problem solving? You would also ask which students are demonstrating a positive response to the supplemental instruction or intervention, and which are demonstrating moderate to poor responses to instruction or intervention. To continue, you would also ask questions like, are the majority of the students within a given supplemental instructional group demonstrating a positive response to instruction? What modifications are needed to increase a positive student responses to that instruction? Which students may need more intensive services? Which students may be ready to either address other areas of need or even transition back into receiving Tier 1 instruction only? And are students who are demonstrating progress at Tier 2 based on progress monitoring data also demonstrating progress on their Tier 1 assessments? If not, why? In the next section, we'll focus on grouping recommendations with an example of how to develop effective small groups designed around data results. In Tier 2, small group instruction is essential to student success, and ongoing progress monitoring plays an important role in this process. It is recommended that students are placed in homogeneous groups for 20 to 40 minutes for 3 to 5 days a week. During this time, the teacher continuously checks for understanding and provides immediate, effective feedback to students. As students make progress, continue to monitor and regroup students after 6 weeks. The student's individual ability score guides instructional grouping, and students in need of similar skill development are grouped together. These groups are dynamic and modified as individual students' needs change. Students at a high-risk need are placed in the smallest instructional groups. This information assists in determining the intervention type, frequency, and intensity. There is no one correct way to form groups. It depends solely on the purpose for working with that group of students. Each group's focus is different based on the instructional need of that particular group. The groups are fluid, flexible, and modified. As students progress, they are grouped and regrouped. The educator monitors student progress frequently, both formally and informally. Let's look at an example of how to use data to differentiate instruction to address different needs. This slide shares the list of students who are receiving support and areas of concern gathered from the data results. Those data indicated 3 of the students, Ricardo, Lei, and Min, in orange, struggle in the areas of decoding, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Peter, Elizabeth, Patricia, Megan, and Lillian, in purple, struggle in the areas of fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And Sarah, Une, Scott, Robert, and Amanda, in green, struggle in the areas of vocabulary and comprehension. Based on the needs of the students, the teacher decided to place the students with the largest. The symbols on the left describe the different levels of support the groups are receiving during their support time. The solid arrow is the time the students are receiving explicit instruction. The striped arrow is the time the students are receiving guided practice, and the striped rectangle indicates the time the students are working independently. The right side of the screen shares Monday's schedule. The teacher first works with all of the students explicitly on a selected comprehension strategy, and then provides time for guided practice. While groups 2 and 3 begin to work independently on the strategy, she begins working with group 1 explicitly with word study. The next day, Tuesday, the teacher connects with the prior day's comprehension strategy work and continues to work explicitly with all of the students developing that strategy. While groups 2 and 3 work independently on that comprehension strategy, she provides guided practice to group 1 with word study. Then, as group 3 continues to work independently, group 1 begins working independently on word study, while the teacher begins to explicitly work with group 2 on fluency. On Wednesday, the teacher explicitly works with the whole class with review of the comprehension strategy. Then, group 1 works independently on word study, group 3 works independently on the comprehension strategy, and group 2 works with the teacher in guided practice with fluency. Later, group 1 works with the teacher explicitly on fluency, group 2 works independently on fluency, and group 3 works independently on comprehension. On Thursday, the teacher provides explicit instruction to the whole class on vocabulary, and then provides continued support through guided practice on vocabulary instruction. Then, time is provided for Group 1 to receive guided practice on fluency, while Groups 2 and 3 work independently on their vocabulary. On Friday, the teacher reviews the key components developed throughout the week. Then, Groups 1 and 2 work independently on fluency, while Group 3 works explicitly with the teacher on comprehension strategies. During the last part of their time together for that week, the teacher provides continued time for Groups 1 and 2 to work independently on their fluency and provides additional time for Group 3 to work independently on comprehension. This example demonstrates 1 week of instruction. The teacher, based on the results, would target the instruction accordingly next week. This concludes the first section that described the components necessary for effective instruction to occur. Up next, the application of effective instruction. Let's take some time and apply what we've learned so far to a case study to ensure effective practices in Tier 2 are taking place. You will need the case study, suggestions for effective interventions resources, formative assessment and differentiated instruction rubric, 3-column notes, and grouping handout. Take a moment and review the handouts. As mentioned in Module 1 regarding effective instruction, the case study covers all 3 tiers of instruction. For this module, we will only be focusing on Tier 2. Take some time and read pages 8 through 13 of the case study, while completing the 3-column notes graphic organizer for Tier 2. Refer to the suggestions for effective interventions resources and the formative assessment and differentiated instruction rubric handouts. Additionally provided is a grouping handout to utilize when making small group placement decisions. Please take this opportunity to collaborate with colleagues and discuss the effective and ineffective practices and how to enhance Tier 2 support. I'm sure you and your team found many examples to complete your graphic organizer. Here are a few examples that you might have also discovered. In effective instructional practices, you might have noticed that the teacher incorporated things like effective reading program on a daily basis. She uses the gradual release of responsibility and reading strategies. Independent reading. She utilizes data effectively, and in her small groups, they're based on need and they're fluid and dynamic. She also scaffolds the learning process. Some of the examples you might have found for opportunities for improvement might have been that you notice that the teacher conferences with students in small group. You also thought that possibly discussions with the core teacher to align strategies need to occur. And you're not sure if she includes time to confer with parents or guardian for support. Some ideas for enhancement you might have also discovered could be things like finding time to conference with students one-on-one, provide opportunities for self-monitoring and self-regulation and reflection, include goal setting and increase buy-in through understanding the relevance of learning and commitment to progress, and confer with core teachers to align those strategies. Now that you have considered and discussed ways to enhance Tier 2 instruction in the case study, consider some ways in your classroom or grade level. How will you support enhancement of Tier 2 practices? Utilizing the results from the 3-column note document, one of the suggestions under enhancement was to confer with core teacher to align strategies. The reading teacher has had great success with the utilization of the Frayer Model graphic organizer. This strategy assists learning by defining and describing terms and providing examples and not examples of the idea. She uses this strategy to pre-teach vocabulary words and incorporates the vocabulary in writing assignments. Additionally, another strategy she uses with great success is word splash. She uses this in order to connect new vocabulary terms to their background knowledge. The reading teacher could meet with the core teachers to share these vocabulary strategies and coach them to the benefits of using these strategies within the classroom. By aligning work, specific strategy instruction, vocabulary terms, subjects, themes, etc., increases student success within core. Included in the next few slides are video examples of effective support for Tier 2. This 20-minute video shares an incredible example of how to effectively utilize data to determine small group instructional practices that can be utilized at any grade level. This 16-minute video shares an elementary example of how to effectively meet the needs of students in Tier 2. This 14-minute video shares a secondary example of how to effectively work with struggling readers in Tier 2. This concludes the second section of the literacy module that characterized effective Tier 2 or supplemental instruction. Next, the third section of the literacy module illustrates effective Tier 3 or intensive intervention instruction with additional information regarding aligning the tiers of instruction. Thank you.